Hi, I'm Danger Dan Jers, the host and GM of the D&D Real Play podcast, D&D Dark. Join us on Wednesdays for an absurd, over-the-top comedy horror adventure, starring some of history's most infamous monsters.
I'm Ben Magnet. I play Mary Frankenstein, our barbarian.
I am Daniel Cruz. I am playing Imhotep the Mummy, our cleric.
I'm Jordan, and I play Larry Talbot, a lycanthropic warlock.
I am Grayson, playing Jack Griffin, the Invisible Man, the party's rogue.
I am Aaron. I play the Phantom of the Opera, our bard.
For more information, go to dndarkpodcast.com and listen to us anywhere you find podcasts.
You've read the books. You've learned the rules. You've played the games. And so is your mom. Just making sure you're paying attention. Now, it's time for something completely off base. From the same guys who haven't done anything exciting yet are the Paladins of Podcast, Rob and Potato. Listen in as they talk about all things related to pen and paper games, challenge rules, and go off script. This is the high fantasy commentary you didn't ask for, but your mom did. This is the Epic Table Audio Show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Epic Table Games Audio Show. The Paladins of Podcast, Bob and Potato. What's going on,
What's
Potato?
up, Rob?
Not too much, my man. Hanging out, just chilling on this wonderful week. Weather's getting nice.
That's true. Weather is getting a little better. That means yard work is coming.
Yeah, I got to mow my lawn already, and
Yeah.
it's like stopped snowing just a few weeks ago, and I think it hasn't rained for 3 days. So
What ruined it for me is that last week I realized that all the leaves that I didn't pick up before the snowfall has been matted down, all dead and decrepit. So I had to really thatch the yard. It's so much worse than raking because you really gotta dig in there, really gotta get all that stuff out. That sucks.
yep, makes you wish you would have did it all last year, huh?
Yep. I told Courtney, I'm like, hey, you know what? I should actually rake the leaves before snowfall.
Yep. But now you know. But
we're
overall,
not a lawn care podcast,
No.
are we?
No, we are not. You beat me to it, son of a gun.
That's right.
So last week we talked about Marvel Multiverse, the playtest
Yes.
rules, and I was doing some reading on it, and a lot of people aren't super impressed with the playtest rules. A lot of the professional reviewers, websites that specifically specialize in nerd stuff, not necessarily just tabletop games or games in general, just nerd stuff. And
Right.
while I agree with a lot of what they said, this game particularly caters to a lot of fanfare. It caters to a lot of nostalgia, but it really fails to deliver, whereas other games can do it better. Well,
Yeah, I have to agree there. There's a lot of tongue-in-cheek and cheesy criteria within the book, but overall it's
Right.
kind of underperforming.
Well, I think, and how I felt when I was reading those reviews, is that it really sounded like it came from people who didn't play a lot of tabletop games. And I say that specifically because they were not impressed with some of the, like you said, tongue-in-cheekness to it, some of the mechanics. Like they call it a D616 system.
Yes.
And it's essentially a 3d6 system where you have 2 die that are your skill die and the 1 special die, which they call the Marvel die, and that is essentially your determining factor between critical successes and regular successes or failures.
Yeah, that's
And
right. That's right.
it's not uncommon in other games to do something similar, such as I want to touch on Vaesen a little bit. I mentioned last week. Now that I've got the rule book, and they have essentially what I call a D66 system, and that's just a 2d6 system.
Oh, okay.
It's something I've been not exactly paying attention to, but something I have noticed recently. There are two things that are popping up in a lot of games, and that's changing their dice system name, and then they're incorporating a lot of safe play space paragraphs in their getting started chapters.
Yeah.
But anyhow,
Yeah.
it's super noticeable. I know that you haven't been able to pick up a lot of newer core rulebooks from other systems or other publishers, but it's incredible to see how many people are starting to push this stance. Which I think it shows the distinction between how we generally operate both as a society and how we have to specifically call out certain things now, which we hadn't had to before.
Right. It was a social contract that wasn't focused on, but now it's hyper focused. That's a little odd. I understand
It is.
why.
Yeah, and we've talked about it before. You and I are decent human beings. We don't feel the need that we have to call attention to that type of environment because we like to
That's right.
create that type of environment because it's just decent to do, and it's sort of an unspoken rule of being not a dick.
Yeah, exactly. And I noticed when I was reading the Multiverse book, the other side is, which I kind of agree on as well when it comes to the other reviews that I actually read up on today, that this book isn't really built for newcomers to tabletop RPGs. It's or like the way they even describe a lot of the things inside the book basically is assuming that you are a veteran player, that you already know the basics of role playing, basics of mechanics, and can just pick it up and play it. But with a new person, they're not going to understand too much, and they're going to feel daunted by the task of learning the system.
And I've seen the same thing, the same comments more than once, and it was in the multiple reviews. And the rebuttal I had against that specific track is that these are the playset rules. They're not a complete rule book. These are the bare skeleton rules in order to get a feel for the game. And
I feel it makes sense too. It is a play test. It's not the rule book. It makes sense.
Right. This play test, generally what they like to see is feedback given so they can fully develop and tweak rules. We're essentially in a alpha beta testing state for this game.
Yeah. That totally makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think the rules are shortchanging anybody. I think that they're easy enough to understand. They do call out a certain few aspects that specifically say, if you've been playing for a long time, you know exactly what we're talking about. We're going to kind of glaze over this. Makes sense. It's not necessarily designed for new people because it is the playtest. It's designed for people who want to figure out the system, get a jump start into it. They want
to help improve it.
Help improve. When the full core rulebook comes out, I fully expect it to be much more in depth, easier to understand, larger chapters, things that will give new players the footing that they need in order to get into the game appropriately.
Me as well. I can't wait for the full book to come out. I'm very anticipating it.
Same. And then what was the other thing? Oh, one of the other things that I hated their critique on was that it was kind of like an old throwback to some of their older games that had been released, like the TSR Marvel superheroes, classic superheroes, or the Marvel role-playing game, or the other Marvel role-playing game. And I can see where they have gripes, but the parts of the systems that they pulled were working for those systems. So they kind of built everything off of pre-existing conditions that were successful. And
right, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Right. I don't know if it's going to mesh well together, but I'm excited to see how it plays out.
Same.
Cool beans. Now that that's kind of out of the way, I know last week you had mentioned you'd like to get a Marvel character built up.
Yeah.
You wanted to have it done by this week.
Yep. Yep. I'm planning on by next episode, I'll not only have a hero to showcase, but also a villain.
I like that because most people play on the right side of the tracks, and villains, smaller market, cooler people.
That's right. That's right. And also, I felt, you need a yin and a yang. You can't just
Yeah.
show off one guy without like the reason why he's there. If that makes any sense.
Right. Right. I dig that.
I think it'd be really fun. I got a lot of ideas. I'm just trying to flesh it all out, make sense of the math of things and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. If you need help, let me know. I mean, I got to go through the rule book a little bit more in depth anyhow. And I've let you know outside of the podcast that I got a shit ton of new books.
Yeah,
in
even
different
raking them in,
systems.
man.
Dude, I've come across quite a few that I was really excited about. And um, it's funny because on the surface, they look shiny and they look new and they look wonderful. And then 7 pages in, you're like, this is just the same game as something else. It uses partially the same mechanics,
It's the same cat, different haircut.
pretty much. And um, that makes the whole argument between things like Pathfinder or D&D mute. I'm sorry, not mute, but moot. Because essentially, while they're different mechanics, they're still the same game.
Yeah.
I'm sure people are going to give us a lot of shit for that. They're going to give me a lot of shit for that comment.
Oh, they are. Come on.
It's
They're basically the
it is.
same.
You have the crunchy rules if you like to micromanage everything, and you have the loose rules if you don't. And people homebrew rules all the time, constantly, and the games are so
Mhm.
muddied right now together that my quest for a new game started with the looking for a Viking game. And
Right. An
I'm looking,
actual Viking themed game, not just a Viking campaign within this game.
right. I wanted something that was much more true to form. So it started with Midgard, which is essentially a system that is laid on top of the Pathfinder rules. It's like, cool, I can get into that. Not a problem. I know the system. Easy peasy.
Right.
Not exactly what I thought it was, by the way. So I'm still looking for that strict theme. But it led me to Vaesen, which I'm really kind of digging right now. And um, I know last episode you got to do a lot of talking about the Marvel Power chapter, and specifically because I had an emergency I had to run. I was
Right.
and I hate to want to dominate this episode.
Oh well, you
But-
have the book. I sadly don't got the material on hand, so I'll hand it off to you.
All right, so a little bit of the basics here. Excuse me, Vaesen is published by Free League Publishing, and this is the Nordic horror role playing game that we talked about.
Yeah.
If you didn't remember, so it's based on the book Vaesen by Johan Egerkrans. I butchered that.
It's one of those names.
Well, the font is funny enough where like the A's and N's start to look the same after a while. But like most games, it's got classes. They call their classes archetypes, and that gives you bonuses to skills and ability scores, and they call them different things. But the really intriguing thing, the thing that I really like the most, is how you deal with the Vaesen. The Vaesen are the supernatural beings. The werewolves, the fairies, the monsters, the things that go bump in the night.
So that's what
And-
Vaesen means. It's like that group of monsters.
It's not just the group of monsters, it's sort of all of the Scandinavian folklore monsters, the Nordic monsters. At least in the book. I'm sure that other people from other regions in the same area call them differently. But this particular one is based off of the book by the same name, and Johan is actually the illustrator for the book itself. The rule book.
Cool.
Yeah, and right off the bat, the artwork is pretty damn spiffy. Some things that I noticed right away is that the art is great. The cover to the book is a matte finish. The pages have a matte finish. They're thick, and they're not glossy. They're not shiny. They feel like fragile paper, if that makes sense. Heavy printer paper, but it feels easy to rip.
Oh, okay.
And
Be
as
careful
as
with
I
it.
was, I'm trying to be. As I was reading
Rip.
through, dude, I swear to God, please no.
I'm jinxing it. I'm sorry. Knock on wood.
as I was reading through the rules, I started reading from page 1, and I've started making my way through the chapters in order. And the thing that I teased last week that I think you're going to really dig is essentially when you get into a conflict with the Vaesen. So when you get into a conflict with a monster or an opponent in most games, it's some form of physical altercation, whether it be a ranged attack or magic attack or close combat, hand to hand, etc.
Right.
Which is doable if you're fighting a human in this game. And if you're fighting the supernatural, it is only used to distract or take up their time. You cannot kill them this way.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, you cannot kill them by physical means and attacks of magic. What you have to do, much like how Pathfinder has campaign settings and D&D had modules, Vaesen has mysteries.
Ooh,
And your mysteries are like your missions. So when you're presented with your mystery, it is your job to identify the secret needed to figure out how to defeat the Vaesen. So
that's
some
cool.
of them, it is very cool. Some of them are really weird. Some of them are completely out there. And then some of them are inconsistent with other members of their own, essentially, species. So
I like that. It feels like you're making a monster a puzzle to defeat.
yes.
I like
It's
that a
fun.
lot.
So I'll start with something simple like a fairy. And I use fairies because every fairy may need to be defeated in a different way. And when you defeat them, they're essentially banished. Not just destroyed. Some are completely destroyed, but they're banished, destroyed. It depends on the specific Vaesen as well. So a fairy may trick people who come around and may play jokes and pranks on the individuals who come around.
Give me your
And
teeth.
something weird, sure. And
What,
the
tooth fairy? Come on.
I get it. But the secret that you have to find is going to be some way to banish or get rid of the fairy. So this particular fairy might be tricking it or playing a prank on it that it doesn't like,
Right.
and it will just leave. Whereas another fairy, granted they're both fairies, but another fairy may need to be given a gift or told a joke. Some giants, for example, may have to be speaking its true name or running through a field ringing church bells.
That's super cool because that feels so true to form to actual folklore.
Yes.
I
Yes,
like
it
that a
does.
lot.
It's incredible because when your character starts out, you don't have access to magic at all. You may
Good.
be granted the opportunity to have a magic skill later if the right scenario comes into play, if the right things are met. You will be
It's supposed to be
given
rare.
magic. Yes.
That's awesome.
And magic comes in 3 different varieties. Things like enchantments, I think it was general magic and troll magic, essentially.
Ooh.
And each of them function a little differently. And again, even magic doesn't necessarily banish or get rid of the Vaesen, but some of them may not like it enough to kind of mess around.
Okay.
And so I've mentioned that these are kind of the bump in the night creatures. However, it states even in the rule book that they don't go around just murdering people. What they're trying to do is trying to find a place in uh, 19th century mythological Scandinavia where they're starting to over industrialize and ruin and cut down forests and woodlands to populate with the industrial age revolution. So it's kind of like a steampunk era game where rifles are existent, but so is magic. And
Right.
the Vaesen are unseen to most people except for those who have some form of sight. When doing character creation, one of the things you have to do is actually determine what traumatic event gave you the sight.
Oh, I like that. It's part of your backstory.
It is.
I like
And
that.
then later in the game, it details how every character has to have a secret that they're trying to keep hidden from everybody. So a personal detail of some kind that they don't want anybody to know. It calls out something in one of the characters, like maybe your character's an alcoholic, and you're trying
Oh,
not to let
okay.
it affect you.
That's realistic.
Yeah, things that can be used against you. I like the setup. The system is cool. It has a very interesting combat system where you're supposed to use cards for initiative.
Hmm.
Obviously, they don't send you with a deck of cards. You got to buy those separately, but they include rules for a deck of playing cards. Thank
Oh, like
goodness.
the bicycle cards, whatever they're called.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
That's neat. I never had a game where you needed cards for. That's interesting.
it is. And one of the other interesting things here is that you can actually swap initiative.
Oh.
So at the start of every round, you can swap initiative with another player as long as nobody has taken an action yet. And you can swap initiative cards with the opponent, NPC or Vaesen, if you beat them on some form of skill check by at least 2.
That's cool. It's a kind of a way to curb advantage and enforce disadvantage. That's
A
interesting.
little bit. A little bit. Um, Things that I noticed that were radically different from popular systems today is instead of having reactions and actions and instant actions or attacks of opportunity, for example, they have
Yep.
2 types of actions, and it's fast action and slow action.
Oh, that's it?
That's it.
It makes it
So
easy.
it does. Fast actions can be a multitude of those types of things. Simple, easy to understand, and I like it. 2d6 system, pretty
That's
solid.
cool. It sounds grounded and strategic enough for that realism that's trying to invoke. I really am feeling it.
Yeah, it's great. And I know I just said a 2d6 system, but sometimes you have skills that will add to your die pool. So you get to add more d6s. And that's how
Oh,
you get
cool.
more successes to counter your opponent's roll. So you can essentially, if they roll 3d6s and you roll 5d6s, and they have more successes than you do, they still win. But if you knock out all of their successes and you still get like 2, for example, you can stake their initiative if you want. That's how that works.
Oh, cool. I like that. Now,
Yeah.
is a success determined by high value or low value? Like, if rolling a 6 is better than rolling a 1, or is it the other way around?
Yeah, rolling a 6 is better than rolling a 1, and a 6 is a
Okay.
success. So for most things, you'll be rolling multiple dice, but a single 6 is considered a full success.
Oh, interesting.
So if you're rolling 3d6 for anything and you roll 1d6, it's a success. The only time that's slightly different is in confrontation with an opponent. So
I
it's a
like
neat
that.
system. Yeah, it's great. And I love that grounded feeling that you've mentioned. The true to form to actual myth is fun. And the way they have it presented and set up, it really has that it's got a horror style feel to it without
Right.
being too over the top or absolutely disgusting. It's not
True,
like a
true.
slasher film.
Right. I feel a good way that the game can be enforcing that horror even more is the fact that you can't one on one initiate a combat with, let's say, a werewolf. You just can't. It's not going to be winning battle. The only thing you can do is try to escape, distract it, eat up some time, what have
Hmm.
you. You know that you can't stop this thing. So
Right.
really, that right there immediately puts you into this like, well, I'm screwed over if I don't think smartly here. I like
Yes.
that.
Yes. And another thing that I think you'll really like in the game is that they have broken conditions for physical body and mental.
Ooh,
Like
you can go
broken
insane.
conditions. Yeah, one of them is a dissociative identity disorder, and there are certain mental broken conditions that are lethal, and it tells you how long it will sort of last before things start to go really downhill.
I like
You
that.
have to, you have to heal yourself somehow and repair, and it's got rules on how that works as well. So a lot of
I need to
interact.
seek therapy.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Um,
That's cool.
the one thing that is really different is it's set up to essentially run one mystery a session. So
Hmm.
it it does allow for long form storytelling, but it's primarily set up for the short form uh, in individual mysteries, which is not bad. I like it still, and it's a game with rules, so I'm sure I'd end up figuring out how to incorporate downtime activities between mysteries or extend
Right.
mysteries to take place over a longer period of time.
There's definitely ways to expand on that for sure and make, a campaign that you want kind of in what you want to have happen in your head work out. I feel a fast-paced mystery that's cool and all because that means you're coming into the session, here's your mystery, and let's have some fun figuring this out, and this is your session. That's cool. I like that. But I
Yeah.
feel as well, depending on the mystery, I guess, if you can stretch that out to like a couple weeks worth of sessions, then it'll be that much more impactful when you finally like
Hmm.
solve it and defeat
Right.
the Vaesen. That's cool.
Right. I dig it, dude. It's new, it's different, and it's one I really look forward to giving a try. I want to take some time and again just sort of check it out. There,
I
I
feel
got a
it'll
lot
be
of
really fun to do a Scooby Doo with this.
maybe I
Sorry,
don't know.
it's the mysteries that keep linking me to Scooby Doo. It'd be fun.
Oh, that's fine. I mean, it makes sense. It's one of those things you could probably Scooby Doo it. Um, I will
Zoinks.
say I generally play a lot of more grimdark style games when I'm running my games, and this one's right up that alley. I don't know if I'd want to add a little bit of comedic effect
That's true. That's true. You really
because
want to lean into that horror for sure.
yeah, I would like to because, like I said, the horror isn't grotesque horror. It's not overpowering horror. It's really just a lot of suspense and thriller style horror where you're looking for the answers and you're trying to solve the issues before things get too far out of hand.
That's right. Tension is the key.
Yes, there's a lot of tension when done right. Then this game gives you every element that you need to build that tension and still be a great game.
I love it. I love it. I would love to play it, man. Whenever we get the opportunity.
Yeah, hopefully soon. But like I had mentioned, not just with Vaesen, I got a lot of games actually. I say a lot, but I think it's like three, maybe four other books I picked up. I actually got Thirsty Sword Lesbians. That, that is interesting on its own. It's over the top the way I want it to be, and it is not distasteful at all with how over the top it is. I had to laugh because the game master is called the Gay Master, which
hmm
which is funny in its own
It
in its
feels
own
like a
right.
fun parody of like a traditional D&D game. I like it.
It does, and it's I got a few people who I think would really fit well, kind of round out the table and learn it. And it's one of those games that just seems way cooler than mowing down dragons every few sections. Um, a- Another one I got was Root. I think I mentioned that one to you briefly.
Root. It sounds familiar, but honestly, I don't remember all the way.
It's a tabletop pen and paper game based off of the card playing board game of the same name.
Hmm.
And you are anthropomorphic creatures who live in the woodlands.
Oh, right. Yeah. I want to play that one. That sounds very fun.
It's yeah, it's good. It's pretty simple. It makes references to the board game that would be easier to understand if you knew the board game, but it's not necessary.
Mm.
I like it. It's interesting. It's pretty much the same sort of think I every time I start looking into the farther chapters, it feels like Robin Hood with anthropomorphic creatures. Everything
Oh,
takes place in the
the like
woodlands.
that one Disney movie of Robin Hood where he's like a fox.
No, just Robin Hood in general.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Um, but it's everything takes place in the woodlands, and there are places in the woodlands that you shouldn't go, and there are woodland creatures that should not be anthropomorphized. One of them it calls out as a bear or deer or a moose. It's just they're too
That's awesome.
powerful. Yeah, it's they said that you shouldn't pick anything bigger than a fox or a wolf or a dog or some of those one of those canine like creatures.
Oh, okay.
And I haven't gotten as far into that one because I've been reading more about Vaesen. But again, as I was reading through it, and I'm like, dude, you know what? It's the same game, different die rolls.
Right.
Yeah, it's not too bad. And we were talking briefly beforehand, and you mentioned that there was a little bit of something you found in Starfinder, and I said that I want to kind of hear what you got because we tend to talk about things before the show, and then we'll forget some major points. By the time
Right.
we get
Keep it a bit genuine.
yeah, yeah. So what's going on with Starfinder? That's something that we want to get into, and we haven't really seen too many people play frequently.
Right. Yeah. Paizo is coming out with a new event called the Drift Crisis.
Okay.
Now, in the universe of Starfinder, the Drift is this like I don't know what you call it. I guess you call it like a zone in space that
Okay.
people would use to warp and basically go through vast distances without doing faster than light travel. It's
Okay.
a quote unquote safer means, but there's also things that can happen while you're in the drift.
Right.
You can get shunted into a material plane and be eviscerated by the sheer force of it. In the drift, yeah, in the drift, you'll find ruins of lost civilizations, planets cracked in half, huge monsters that live within the drift, and the drift itself is actually controlled by a godlike AI that you don't really want to mess with either. But
Okay.
the drift crisis. Actually, let me just go off with the article before I get too ahead of myself here. Paizo is shaking up its popular Starfinder universe with a brand new catastrophic event. This week, Paizo announced the year-long Drift Crisis event for its Starfinder tabletop role-playing game. The
It's a
event
year
kicks
long.
off. year-long event. So they're like
Wow.
constantly going to be pumping out content within the next year for it.
Nice.
Yeah, that's cool. The event kicks off when the alien civilizations who inhabit the Starfinder universe are suddenly cut off from the Drift realm, which allows ships to span massive distances without resorting to faster than light speeds. Communication between galaxies are cut off. Ships traveling through the drift are either shunted back into the material plane or lost entirely, and the sentient, godlike AI who controls the drift falls silent. When ships try to re enter the drift, they discover that the realm has been transformed into a strange and deadly void with escape not guaranteed. Which sounds pretty nuts. Pretty nuts. I can see a lot of hijinks and uh, a lot of dire situations happening there.
Yeah.
Drift Crisis will feature multiple tie-in products, including a Starfinder Drift Crisis, I guess TM, that provides GMs with 20 detailed story hooks for adventures set during this traumatic time period, and help to explain how various cultures and civilizations are dealing with the crisis. Paizo will also publish 2 adventure paths set during Drift Crisis, with Drift Crashers taking players from level 1 to level 7, and Drift Hackers running from level 7 to level 13, providing a canonical ending to the crisis. So it's pretty neat. It seems like the Drift Crisis is like it's a space of time that's actually be canonical to the overarching product of Starfinder.
That's what it
And
sounds like.
yeah, it sounds pretty neat. It sounds like you're gonna have a lot of adventures and a lot of angles and viewpoints that you can kind of take this on, because there's so many alien civilizations, so many planets that can be inflicted and affected by this cut off of the realm. And
Right.
on top of that, how the realm has now been changed to an even more deadlier void than it was before. Sounds
Yeah.
pretty bonkers.
Absolutely. And it sounds like the kind of thing that has a massive scale to it, which isn't something you generally see in most games. So I like that.
Right.
That's interesting.
I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but at least for the Adventure Pass or Pathfinder, not a whole lot of them are connected, and not a whole lot of them are like spanning an arc. It's more like, here's the story that's happening in this timeline in this area, whereas this is like making an arc. This is making a long spanning timeline that's kind of pushing the whole narrative forward, not just, oh, here's another story, which I like.
Mm-hmm. I like it too. It's really cool. It sounds like it's a good time if you like space based RPG games to kind of jump in if you haven't yet already. And for those who have been playing Starfinder, it sounds like something to be equally excited about regardless, because with so much new content for Starfinder, I actually wonder if they'll gear up to kind of do a 1.5 edition or second edition like they've done with Pathfinder.
Oh
Kind
yeah,
of, hey,
maybe.
we have all these things in the wheelhouse that are so far developed for first edition that we need to get out so we can start second.
Right,
See
right.
what they do and see where they go with that. The downside is a lot of Starfinder books are super expensive.
Yeah, they are a
Or-
little bit on the pricey side.
So anybody who's been looking into Starfinder, let us know if you can get a good deal on any of the books. We'll jump on that right away.
Oh heck yeah, man! Oh, I'll love to play as a Starfinder, man. I already got like 3 character ideas that I want to make happen. Oh, it'd be so fun.
Dude, I hear you. I'm a big fan of Space Marine style shit, which is funny because I love the Warhammer 40K lore, the stories, but
Yeah,
as much as I thought about getting into the game, it seems like a drag.
dude.
I don't know
Same
what it
here.
is.
Like I love the lore, but I don't want to put my hands on the games. If
Right.
anything, I've played the video games where it kind of locked in a certain position. Other
Yeah.
than that, I'm not playing the tabletop. I'm not playing what do you call it? The war mastering game.
Right.
But I love the lore. It's pretty insane, that universe.
I agree. It's really fun. And honestly, I think that's really about what we talked about prior to our episode, and it feels short today because I said, why don't we hold off on our monster spotlight, particularly because I do want to try to keep this one contained and not spread out. It's easier for us to write a synopsis.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
A fewer things, and then it also kind of frees up a few minutes at the end of this episode to leave a cliffhanger about what I want to do next episode. Again,
Ooh, gotta have a cliffy.
a little bit. So you said that your hope is to have a Marvel Multiverse hero and villain done up by next episode. So that's one more week, Potato.
That's one more week. I gotta hop to it.
That's 2 characters in 7 days.
Yeah, I can do it.
I hope so.
I'll bring the book with me to work, and
don't do that. We work in a dirty facility.
it'll get destroyed.
Oh, absolutely. So next week, what I want to kind of talk about is, that we've made a few changes in our bi-weekly game. We switched things up from the game that we were playing, and we put the Midgard system on top. We're trying that out.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to get the review written for the system. I've actually been trying to write this stupid review for months now. And I've actually got more to it now than I've ever had. And I want to talk about the Midgard system and kind of what I'm noticing in some of the shortfalls that it's got. And I want to lead that into the topic of conversation that we've touched on previously, because third-party content where it's got an entire campaign system and world developed to it is something we're both trying to overcome with developing our own individual games that we want to release.
Yeah.
So I really want to talk about the processes that we're going through in trying to develop those. And that's what I want to focus on next week, because we're experiencing an influx of new games. We're experiencing some third-party content that's just piled on top of existing systems. And lo and behold, if I remember correctly, I got to look this up because I don't want to get the wrong date here. Okay? Hang out with me just for a second.
Cue the elevator music.
I don't think we need elevator music. It's just the fact that by the time all of this gets rolling and we get all of our favorite content out, Gen Con should be coming up at the beginning of August, and we'll have plenty of new shit to talk about.
Oh gosh, Gen Con. Oh.
Yeah.
I was not prepared for Gen Con. Not gonna lie.
Bro, I mean, I know that it is still the tail end of April, early May, but we're talking August already with some of the coolest shit around, some of the biggest things that we want to see. And I don't want to get hung up on talking about stuff that we should have talked about weeks ago when it comes up.
That's true. I like that. We're trying our best to stay on top of it.
Yeah.
You're doing a bit better than I am, not gonna lie. Kudos to you.
All right. Well, I mean, I've been doing it a little bit longer. I keep my finger on the pulse of this kind of stuff.
Do you know when Gen Con is going to be at this year?
Let's see. It's generally always in Indianapolis, I believe. Indiana Convention Center. So, Indianapolis, Indiana. It's in Indianapolis. Indiana Convention Center, Indianapolis.
All right. Cool,
Yes.
cool.
Yes. So, thanks for letting me kind of blabber on about Vaesen this week, and I'm glad it sounds interesting. I'd like to get you at the table to play it soon.
Dude, I love it. It'd be fun. It'd be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. So, guys, check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/epictablegames, or online at epictablegames.com.
Peace.
Epic Table Games! Fairy tales, dragon tales, quests, knights, roll, dice, fantastical, night, fairy tales, dragon tales, quests, Table audio show with the paladins of the podcast, Rob and Potato. Until next time, stay in touch on Facebook at Epic Table Games and online at epictablegames.com. Yeah. Epic Table Games. Yeah.